Belarus's factories are sitting idle, only kept alive by the efforts of retirees working brief shifts. It's a haunting scene. Imagine the hum of machines, the scent of oil and metal lingering in the air, yet nothing is being produced for sale. This is the core of Belarus's employment crisis, a catastrophic stockpile crisis. What happens when factories churn out goods but cannot find buyers? The tragic answer is clear: these factories are transforming into enormous warehouses. This is precisely what is unfolding across the nation today. By the third quarter of 2025, warehouse inventory levels soared to an alarming 91.1% of the total monthly production. That number is staggering. Just a year earlier, it stood at only 69%. That means nearly every product made out of every 100 sits abandoned in storage, rotting away, useless. Why is this happening? The main reason is Belarus's sole major customer, Russia, is sinking in economic turmoil. The slowdown in the Russian economy has dragged Belarus's exports down by nearly 3%. Meanwhile, Chinese goods flood the Russian market, overwhelming Belarus's traditional products. Mass truck sales plummeted by 44%, and sales of vital machinery dropped more than 82%. This isn't stagnation, it's the death of entire industries. At the Zloben metallurgy plant, bonuses for workers have been sliced by 60%, thanks to surpluses of metal and plummeting prices. Salaries shrink, working hours become shorter, and factories grow silent, fading echoes of a once thriving industrial heartbeat. But the crisis doesn't stop at factories. It seeps into the very foundation of Belarusian science and education. Disgraceful scenes unfold in high-level meetings where President Lukashenko berates scientists, as if trying to will his way out of despair. His shouts for scientists to improve their status are a bitter joke. What's the point when the government admits openly that there's no money left to support them? When a janitor can earn more than a scientist, the collapse extends beyond economics to the very soul of intellectual progress. This systemic collapse is relentless. The rusted gears grinding beneath the polished propaganda reveal a nation on the brink of total breakdown. But the most shocking question still remains: with factories turning into warehouses and brains fleeing the country, how long can Belarus withstand this silent, devastating collapse before it's too late? Following the collapse of Belarus's economy, the regime is fueling a new crisis at its western borders. Instead of controlling the chaos inside, Lukashenko's government is deliberately pushing migrants and contraband into neighboring countries. Rumors swirl of smuggled vehicles disguised as weather balloons drifting into Lithuanian and Polish airspace. On November 23, after weeks of silence, illegal crossings at the Lithuanian border surged again. This isn't coincidence, it's a calculated move. The Minsk regime has weaponized border crossings as a political tool, interpreting Western gestures of goodwill as vulnerability. Every time Vilnius opens checkpoints, Belarus exploits the moment, pushing to destabilize. But the West's patience is nearing exhaustion. The Lithuanian Prime Minister's warning sounds more like an ultimatum. If border crossings aren't secured, the borders might close entirely, which could be catastrophic for Belarus. Cutting off the last link to Europe would crush what little trade remains. Transportation routes grind to a halt. Trucks bearing Lithuanian registration now hesitate at the border, afraid to cross and risk imprisonment. Meanwhile, Lukashenko's regime hopes to paint a picture of strength through electoral rallies and political theater. Yet behind the scenes, he's trembling. European leaders, especially those in the European People's Party, call for the release of political prisoners and tighter pressure on his government. His threats against critics and relatives of prisoners are signs of desperation, not power. As internal control slips away, the regime grows harsher. Repression intensifies, sending more citizens fleeing into uncertainty. The cycle of destruction accelerates: fewer dissenters, more economic devastation. Even military tensions spike, with Latvia extending its flight restrictions over border regions. The region teeters on the edge of chaos, with Belarus as the unpredictable powder keg ready to explode. This open conflict at the border isn't just about migration or trade, it's a battle of survival. Will the regime crack under pressure? Or will it push the entire region into a conflict that could spiral far beyond borders? The clock's ticking, and the world watches with bated breath. In Belarus, a silent war rages beneath the surface, one more deadly than any battlefield. Imagine an invisible enemy, striking not with guns or missiles, but through locked warehouse doors, unpaid wages, and a relentless exodus of people crossing borders in despair. This is a crisis unlike any before, hidden behind a facade of stability. But the truth emerges in staggering figures. In just the first 9 months of 2025, nearly 700,000 workers vanished from the core of the Belarusian economy. That's more than a third of its active workforce. These numbers scream of a country crumbling from within, its backbone fractured beyond repair. The industrial giants, relics of the Soviet era that once powered a proud nation, now sit silent and useless. They no longer produce, they merely stockpile goods that cannot be sold. Warehouses overflow with unsellable goods, dead capital rotting away. Meanwhile, employees are sent home on unpaid leave, their stomachs growling with hunger. It's a tragic tableau of industrial collapse. Instead of confronting this reality, the regime led by Lukashenko chooses to turn a blind eye. Diplomatic head turns are preferred over economic rescue, leaving millions with no choice but to flee or starve. Over 400,000 Belarusians, about 5% of the population, have already left this sinking country, seeking refuge elsewhere. The question is, how did the iron grip of Lukashenko's regime shatter so completely when faced with economic facts? The regime's veneer of control is cracking, revealing a nation on the brink. Behind closed borders, the regime tries desperately to contain its own people, threatening to shut exit routes entirely. Belarus is transforming into a panic room, about to be locked tight. To truly understand what caused this collapse, we must peel back the polished propaganda and examine the rusted machinery beneath, the hidden gears that now threaten to grind everything to a halt. This crisis in Belarus didn't emerge overnight. The year 2025 marked a devastating turning point for its industry. The decline has been relentless, like a slow-moving avalanche crushing the backbone of the nation. Once a vital link in Russia's assembly line, Belarus now faces economic catastrophe. Concrete numbers reveal this heartbreak vividly. Even with manipulated reports from official sources, the truth is impossible to hide. Between January and September 2025, nearly 700,000 people lost their jobs, 691,000 to be exact. Meanwhile, just over 500,000 were hired back, only 581,000. That staggering gap of 110,000 isn't just unemployment, it's a sign of a system breaking apart at its core. The hardest hit sectors, manufacturing, agriculture, logistics, are bleeding. But what's forcing workers out into the cold? Two deadly forces, collapsing demand and clogged supply chains. Picture workers at the Rudzinsk lighting factory and the Bobruisk tractor parts plant. They are told they're taking unpaid leave willingly, tricked into believing it's their choice. But in reality, they are being pushed into hidden unemployment, silent layoffs invisible in official stats. They sit at their stations, their paychecks frozen, as the machines they built fall silent around them. Even the pride of Minsk, the Atlant factory, producing white goods, has fallen victim. With sales to Russia halted, it now runs only on retired staff, operating just 4 hours a day. This is the critical point: storage is overflowing while shelves are empty. Factories produce more than they can sell. The inventory levels hit an alarming 91.1% of monthly output in the third quarter of 2025. A year earlier, this figure was only 69%. Imagine this: nearly every product manufactured is left to rot, trapped in warehouses. The shelves are lined with unsellable goods, the air heavy with the scent of stagnation. The question looms: what happens next? Will factories fade or turn into giant warehouses? The answer is clear, and the threat is immediate: if goods can't be sold, production will cease altogether. Belarus's economic engine is sputtering, and rusted gears are grinding to a halt, an ominous sign of collapse in progress. In the dark shadows of Belarus, a silent war rages, more deadly than any battlefield. But this battle isn't fought with guns or missiles. No, it's waged with locked warehouse doors, unpaid wages, and millions of footsteps at border crossings, heading for the unknown. Amid centuries of propaganda branding Minsk as stable, the country is crumbling. Its economy is shattered, its population tearing away. Imagine this, nearly 700,000 workers lost their jobs in just 9 months, leaving families broken, dreams crushed. This isn't just a statistic. It's the collapse of a nation's backbone. The colossal factories from the Soviet era, once symbols of power, now lie silent. They are stockpiles of dust and rust. Goods sit unsold in overflowing warehouses, dead capital choking the economy. Meanwhile, workers are pushed into unpaid leaves, their stomachs growling, hope fading. Yet, instead of confronting the crisis, the regime's leaders turn their backs. Instead of fixing what's broken, they chase diplomatic illusions in distant Kyrgyzstan. The people see the truth, escape is their only chance. Over 400,000 Belarusians, 5% of all residents, have fled this sinking ship. They leave behind their homeland, heading west, seeking safety. Today, we'll reveal how Lukashenko's grip shattered when hit by harsh economic reality. We'll expose how the country's industrial core has stopped beating, how factories stand frozen, and how the leader plans to trap his own people. Threatening to close borders, he's turning Belarus into a deadly prison, an entire nation on the edge of lockdown. But what lies beneath this facade? To truly understand the collapse, we must peel back the polished veneer of propaganda and explore the rusty, broken gears beneath. This isn't just an economic crisis, it's an unraveling of a nation's soul. And the question remains, can Belarus survive what's coming next, or is this the beginning of its final chapter? Belarus is slipping into chaos. Its struggles go far beyond economic decline, it's a volatile powder keg drifting on NATO's doorstep. Any moment, sparks could ignite an uncontrollable explosion. President Lukashenko claims there's hope on the horizon, but perhaps he's mistaken, those headlights are actually the glare of an oncoming train, promising disaster. What we're witnessing isn't just a downturn, it's the slow, methodical collapse of a nation. Factories shut down. No buyers, no sales, no future. Invisible walls are closing in as workers leave, their dreams ripped apart. While Lukashenko conferences with Putin in Bishkek, in Minsk, the streets are eerily silent. The last light from the border gates flickers, highlighting the crumbling core of Belarus, its people. Is there hope to reverse this slide? It seems unlikely. As Russia's economy stalls, Belarus's economy trembles even more. Borders tighten, Western nations close their doors. The workforce disappears, it's a death march. Belarus is turning into a relic, a ghost town of industry and people. Eventually, it appears destined for the silence of a graveyard, not stability. History teaches us a brutal lesson: no oppressive ruler can sustain a silence imposed by starving citizens and a stagnating economy forever. The question remains, will this silent death be Belarus's fate, or can something be done before it's too late? The clock is ticking. The future hangs in the balance. And yet, here's the shocking twist: Lukashenko's own regime might be blind to the real danger. As they tighten their grip, they unknowingly accelerate the country's collapse. Could this be their final act? Or is there a hidden plan lurking beneath the surface that could usher in an unexpected salvation or total devastation? Imagine a future where the last factories fall silent, and the streets are filled only with echoes of a lost nation, all while the ruling regime clings to illusions of control. The streets grow colder, the air thick with the scent of despair, and the last whispers of hope fade away. Will Belarus's story end here, silent, abandoned, forgotten? Or is there a last-minute twist that could change everything? The answer could shock us all, but only if we pay close attention. Belarus stands on the brink of collapse. Its factories silent, warehouses overflowing with unsellable goods, and tens of thousands of workers vanished. The entire economy is bleeding out, the backbone of a once thriving nation snapping under pressure. Imagine the sound of machines grinding to a halt, the scent of stale industrial air mixing with the quiet despair. Every number tells a story of catastrophe. In just 9 months, nearly 700,000 people, about 5% of the population, lost their jobs. That's like wiping out an entire city's workforce overnight. These are not just statistics, they are lives shattered, families broken. Factory after factory, from assembly lines in Zlobin to textile plants in Minsk, have stopped producing. Instead, they sit abandoned, packed with stock products rotting in warehouses, waiting for buyers that no longer exist. The Russian market, once Belarus's main customer, is now drowning in Chinese imports. Trucks full of belts, trucks, and machinery sit idle. The failure is widespread, the industry is turning to dust. As factories close, the impact widens. Universities and science labs are emptying out. Leading scientists, the nation's intellectual hope, are slipping away. Doctoral programs cut by 10% in just 3 years. Education and innovation are dying amid economic chaos, replaced by despair. The divide between workers and scientists widens into a chasm, an entire generation disintegrating. The bright minds, the skilled hands vanishing into the shadows of the EU, seeking safety. By the hundreds of thousands, Belarusians are fleeing, leaving behind their homeland. Over 400,000, roughly the entire population of a major industrial city, have already taken flight into neighboring countries. These are not just numbers, they are tragedies. Entire families, the youth and skilled workers, quietly crossing borders, Poland, Lithuania, beyond. The exodus drains hope and potential, hollowing out the future of this nation. The brain drain is relentless. In the IT sector alone, 13% of Belarusian developers have left. Thousands of hands that built its digital world now craft routines elsewhere, fueling economies abroad. The emptying country faces more than an economic crisis, it threatens its soul. Young, working-age adults are leaving in droves, leaving behind only the elderly. The pension system, once a symbol of stability, is collapsing. Payouts have plummeted to just 35% of average wages. Who is left to pay the bills? The disappearance of active workers strips the system of its lifeblood. Florida or Vilnius seem distant compared to this growing disaster. Belarus's future is slipping away like grains of sand through fingers, leaving a bleak, silent wasteland behind. Meanwhile, the regime's leader, Alexander Lukashenko, remains fixated elsewhere. Instead of addressing the mounting crisis, he jets off to Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, to meet with Vladimir Putin. The meeting isn't just diplomatic, it's a submissive show of loyalty. A clear signal that Belarus is locked in a dependency trap and economic hostage, clinging to Kremlin favor. But even Moscow's support is waning. Their resources are drying up, and Belarus's hopes for outside aid crumble each day. Lukashenko's global ambitions, visits to Southeast Asia and North Africa, are nothing more than desperate attempts to find new markets for a sinking ship. But who will buy when Belarus is drowning in debt, suffocated by sanctions, and bleeding talent? His strategy? Export the crisis. The borders with Lithuania and Poland have become battlegrounds, hybrids of open conflict and political tension. The country is turning into a fortress of panic, prepared to shut its doors forever, trapping its own people inside, with no way out. As the nation's industry stalls and the workforce evaporates, the question lingers, will Belarus's leadership recognize the catastrophe before it's too late? Or is the country destined to become a forgotten relic of missed opportunities and broken dreams? In Belarus, the cracks are widening beneath the polished facade of stability. The regime's warning signs are deafening, factories closing, workers fleeing, and the economy collapsing. Yet, behind closed doors, a silent war rages, the destruction of a nation's livelihood, one job at a time. The question echoes in the shadows, will Belarus survive this impending disaster, or is it already beyond repair? The reality is more horrifying than any propaganda. The year 2025 didn't just mark a change, it signaled the death knell for Belarus's industrial backbone. For decades, Belarus was Russia's reliable assembly line and resource supplier. Now, that relationship is unraveling faster than anyone could imagine. The steady hum of machinery has turned into a mournful silence, broken only by the faint sounds of rusted gears grinding their final moments. Thousands of plants have ceased production, their once bustling halls now echoing with emptiness. Official data is manipulated, but even the most polished reports hide a brutal truth. Between January and September of 2025, 691,000 workers vanished from the payroll, each number a story of despair, every missing face a fragment of a nation falling apart. At the same time, only 581,000 found new jobs, a harrowing gap of over 110,000 souls swept away by economic collapse. This isn't just unemployment, it's the dismantling of Belarus's very foundation. The factories, the farms, the logistics hubs, they bleed to death, caught in a deadly grip of collapsing demand and clogged supply routes. Picture this: workers at the Rudzinsk lighting factory and the tractor parts plant in Bobruisk. They are told fake smiles, false promises, that they are on unpaid leave by choice. Lies. Hidden layoffs, they sit in their stations, frozen paychecks in hand, while machines stand silent. The air thickens with the smell of stagnation, the scent of dreams slipping away. Even the pride of Minsk, the Atlant factory, once known for white goods, has become a ghost town. With sales to Russia evaporating, it survives only on retirees working short shifts, barely keeping their heads above the tide. And what about the surplus of products? The storage warehouses are bursting, stacked with unsellable goods. By the third quarter of this year, inventory levels soared to 91.1% of monthly production, a staggering rise from just 69% a year earlier. Here's the cruel irony: nearly every manufactured item is destined to rot away, locked inside warehouses that stretch into the horizon. The shelves remain empty, the emptiness echoing with unspoken fears. The big question hangs heavy: will these factories fade into massive warehouse vaults, or will the entire industrial system grind to a halt? The warning signs are unmistakable: if these goods cannot find buyers, the factories will die. The entire economic engine sputters under rusted gears and cracked pistons. Belarus's industry, once a vital part of the Soviet-era powerhouse, is now a carcass of its former self, limping towards inevitable collapse. The question persists: how long can this silent demise continue before the country's backbone snaps? The answer is chilling: the future of Belarus is slipping through its fingers, trapped inside warehouses of despair, as the nation's resilience evaporates into the shadows of the past.